All right. Well, I don't think this will actually make it on the podcast because like my lighting is really bad and have to get the professional blogging. Do you remember our CTO, our current CTO during COVID? He just had the best camera setup.
Yeah.
He had like a full frame Canon with a f1.2 lens, and
Yeah.
I think that's why he became CEO. He just like wowed everyone on them.
You know what I did recently? Like I was going to do a YouTube, and instead of using, like I'm using right now, a stream cam, I used my phone, and I just 3D printed a little mount for the phone.
Huh?
And then, oh my God, it's a Pixel, right? Pixel 9 Pro. Quality is just amazing.
Okay.
The results are fantastic.
Okay, so here's I got to change the details, but an essay Red Hat is covering an amusement park, and the amusement park, they have animatronic robots with coverings on them to make them like, hey, I'm a furry dog, or I'm a troll, or I'm a whatever, right? So this ambitious essay, like they had a problem because they needed speech to text in like 15 different languages because it's a amusement park that has a bunch of worldwide locations. So this ambitious Red Hat essay, like not only did he program a custom model so that people could say, hey, raise your right paw, and the dog would do it. He also 3D printed an actual dog and hooked up like a Raspberry Pi with robotics. so talk about, I mean, I think that's like the overachievement demo of the day, right? But you're here for episode 90, I think this is 93 of the 100 Rules. And for people new to this, we started at the number 90, and you got to look at that episode to understand why I started with 90. I think I told you, Guy, right?
Well, actually, I watched your YouTube about it.
Yeah, it's
there were many reasons, and one of them was like Colin Powell's 90% rule.
Yeah. So today it's actually you're like my first guest. So I suppose I would say, who are you? What do you do? What do you used to do? And what do you think of the 100 rules? And then we'll finish off with, is there a rule that I just totally missed?
So who am I? So I'm definitely someone who's deeply involved in technology, have been my entire life, right? So I started probably at writing software when I was 14 years old. At 15, I was writing assembly code, right? So 6502 processors. And
it was 6809, but so you had the less capable one, right?
Yeah,
probably 8-bit registers.
It was an 8-bit register, right? So this would have been like a Commodore 64 type computers, right? Through those years. Entering school, the two big languages were Pascal and C. So KNRC was becoming very popular. So when I started my career, development started in C. And that's where I did a lot of, I believe, like yourself, embedded software development in the telecom sector. And one of the operating systems at the time was VxWorks, and VxWorks was a real-time operating system. It was just one big process, right? Just sitting in, it had access to all the memory space.
Right. So do you remember Brian Cool?
Of course I do.
He's still at Wind River, and he said that he's building an operating system and needs help. So I'm still at Red Hat. I'm not going anywhere. You're retired, but you're right up there. You could go down and help them architect it.
I'm not sure the world needs another operating system at this point, especially not at those lower layers.
I think they could use cleaner, smaller, like much less hackable, like a really small exposed surface.
Yeah, I think that's the claim to fame, and what a lot of those vendors and those solutions currently say as well, right? It's that it has less of an attack surface and it's less well known, But at the end of the day, we know that, having open source, even though if it's a very large amount of code,
Right.
having these millions of eyes looking at it certainly
This is something that I think AI can help. Like I've designed, and I hope in the next week or two to show off my Tailscale. I think Tailscale is a fantastic Canadian company, and nobody used my Tailscale. It's like done by one guy, and I copied their open source. I'm like that leech that everybody hates, right? But they have their own like enterprise grade Tailscale, and the stuff they do makes sense. Like they keep your keys, right? I think they do, even though it's zero trust, and they're probably encrypted. They probably can't look at your keys, but still, you need like daddy to keep all this stuff. And then if a thing got hacked, you would just have to do your recovery password and you could get the key. So what I decided, just as an exercise with the 100 rules, was to say, what if I made Tailscale, but there was no Tailscale? It's all your own code. And the way I organized it was with 3 objects, and I'm trying to get better at object-oriented stuff. So objects are devices, they're users, and work groups. And work groups is a hierarchical object thing where you can have as many layers as possible. Like you could call it an organization, a company, a country, a military, and then you could have all the sub things, right? And so each of those has their own private key. And to talk, even if you talk to a group, you have to repeat the message for everyone. So it's not incredibly efficient that way. You have to encrypt for every member of that group. But it makes it easier if people get revoked. You just have to revoke their credentials, put it on a banned list, and then no future stuff, can go to that guy.
Yeah, and I think that goes to, you asked me for the 100 rules and what I thought about it. So 100 rules, fairly complete and opinionated, as you stated in there, right? So specific, but your specificity on, using UBI and OpenShift, that didn't resonate as much in the 100 rules. I think a lot of it was more generic, but I think it could be more genericized. And the reason I say maybe it could use more generic is to have the option to add more architectural rules in there, the 100 rules. So this optionality, and I bring it up because when I looked at it, and you're mentioning Tailscale, it was the security aspect, right? So as soon as your container-based environment, you would want, so let's say TLS for communication, right, between the APIs, and these are types of rules that probably I would want to add. The other 100 rules, when think of containerization, for me was architecturally, you want high scalability. So the concept
it's something I left out.
Yeah, so having more stateless behavior. I think we had a conversation where you had talked about things being more stateless, but as I looked at the 100 rules, I think I didn't see that more statefulness.
I think I have one rule, and maybe it got missed, was that state should only live in one place, and that state should be cached in a coherent way with something like Redis to be readily available.
Yeah, I didn't see Redis in there, but maybe I missed it. But that's the type of, and I wouldn't want to, and that's where there should be more optionality for somebody to maybe drop in a few of their own rules in terms of the architecture.
And you're saying something really interesting, because I noticed, if you've read my rules, I make a rubric, and I made a rubric for the rules themselves. So I was eating my own dog food, and I graded all of them. I actually ranked them myself, and I saw where AI ranked them, and AI, it didn't like my rule in 90. It put that down at like 36, and it was very much on security first, which makes a lot of sense, because the way the rubric was, it's the cost to do it and the cost if it screws up. So the cost to scan for an API key is almost instantaneous. The cost if you screw it up is like a $30,000 bill for your G Cloud, right? And when it got down into the weeds, where I was saying, that stuff is just kind of like a shout out. I'm a Red Hat engineer. They pay salary. Of course, it's going to be the Red Hat way. You're going to use Podman, universal base images. If you're going to use Docker, like get lost. We don't use Docker daemons here. There are compelling security reasons for all those things, and I do love the architecture, but it is a specific thing. Another thing, so it got ranked 49. So 51, it got a 49% rank, which I considered 50 to be the cutoff. So my own Podman rule was going to get cut off, and we were going to go down to more like 80 rules. And you are very correct. Those bottom 20 rules are almost all like specific Ed Haynes like things. Like I love Podman, I love SE Linux. I actually named my research assistant the persona. I named after a girl I knew in high school who was like the smartest girl in school. And you know, a lot of people, it's like you said, it's overkill. I have 5 personas and you cut it down to 3. And I bet you there's no reason for me to have 5 other than I was like doing fun little shout outs to like friends I had in high school.
Yeah. So cutting, I mean, this having all these personas and understanding them and then being able to craft the prompts based on those personas, I think that still stands. It's just that the reality is when you're dealing with the different agents, you probably want to craft that prompt bigger and just send it off to that agent that has more of those functions.
Right. And
otherwise there's too many handoffs, right?
Yeah, and I do, you're correct. There's that that guy in the middle, Jason, is the bottleneck because he coordinates everything.
So you say he's in the middle, I say he's on top.
Yeah, well, I think Claudius is on top. That's your cloud model that does the deep thinking. But my goal is to have 90%, again, my 90 rule, 90% I want to be done on your laptop. And so then that means we can only afford a small and a medium model. I'm assuming it's people with like 8 GB RAM in their laptops. A lot of corporate might only have 4, but let's say 8. Let's be optimistic. Power users are going to be the ones doing this, right? So, or people with a MacBook are all set, right? But we're going to do 1, maybe 2 billion parameter model for JSON that just knows all the rules by heart and is super fast at parsing out all this stuff to other people. And then 1 medium rule for like generating Python tests to an already known API. Simple, right? And then, but then the architecture work and the hard coding, like the Claude, anything that goes to Claude in the cloud, like I would hope that we could eliminate a bunch of the waste of both like power and money. And a dirty little secret, and Claude is amazing and has taken my code places it's never been before, but their whole thing is to encourage consumption. They have no reason to do things efficiently. They spawn a dozen sub-agents. And then at the end, they say, would you like me to look at this? The first time I used AI coding, it just asked, do you want this? Do you want this? All these nice to have features that had nothing to do. And like my code was an absolute mess. It was just like spaghetti code with like the 50 things that Claude asked to put in it. So you got to be assertive. I know you're assertive. You got to be assertive with Claude. And Jason controls Claude, not the other way around. And I control Jason.
So I've done a lot of development with these coding agents, but one thing I've never done is let them loose on my Git repo. So I've always kept all commits and everything to myself. GitHub is mine. They don't have the keys to access it. I just felt more comfortable with it, especially based on everything we've seen in the industry about leaking API keys and so forth, right? But you cover a lot of that in your 100 rules, right? So, I mean, you're saying you got to get in your dotty in.
Yeah, right? I put a lot of guardrails. And here's my thing. I don't let Claude delete anything in Git. There's a history of everything. If he does a terrible merge, which I've never seen him do, but eventually it's going to happen, and then you can just revert back. And that's my rule, like merge everything, merge always, let Claude, or probably that medium-sized model that we have running locally, probably Llama 8B or Gemma or something, 8B. And what I would love to get, though, is people that can have their local coding agent. They can get on the aircraft, Wi-Fi is spotty, they're able to do 90% of stuff. Maybe at the end, they have a whole to-do list for Claude in the cloud that when they land, Jason kicks that off and says, hey, here's all this stuff. Ed was too busy. We didn't know what to do. We'll just do this.
And then there's the orchestration of all these agents together, right? So I looked at some possibilities here. So I looked at like Hermes is very popular, right? It's OpenClaw-like, but they did their own thing outside of OpenClaw. And I looked into what it would take to be able to create these various agents, which would be Hermes profiles. And it wasn't that bad, but it would have required me to write my own like Python type environment to do all the different handoffs and keep relaunching Hermes under a different profile. So I think that that's very non-efficient. So I did look at RuCode, which is a common plugin that's available in VS Code as an extension.
Right.
And that already has all the concepts right there, right? In terms of the various agents and the orchestrators. And your 100 rules maps really well into creating all the different files and configurations required for the various agents and the various personas within RuCode. Having said that, RuCode is successful. Like a lot of successful programs, it's going away now. So they're going to be in the cloud. It's going to be just some commercial offering.
I wonder if we should have like an automated, you and I can create an automated AI bot that whenever someone takes something like Jenkins, or I forget what it used to be called, but Oracle tried to like, I think Jenkins was the free fork.
Yep.
The thing Oracle did, no one remembers what its name was because it had 2% of the market, right? But I think it would be nice if when big companies pull the rug from stuff, and I would argue Red Hat's been pretty good at not doing that. I mean, we do some stuff with Ansible that where we give you all the pieces to assemble the car, but we don't assemble the car for you, and we don't do the 50,000-mile maintenance, right? And so, but maybe we could create an AI agent that these old deprecated projects, it just sits there and keeps it up to date with the latest security patches and stuff. And then a set of human eyes tries to penetrate, test it, and try some different things. And then it's just your mileage may vary. And you have a GoFundMe or a contribute now button to beg people to pay for like the cloud costs.
Pay my compute. And that's always our biggest issue, right? These individual hobbyists, right? Giving away a lot of our free time to the community, and we got to.
All right, so enough about me. What are you up to? Because I know you're living the life, retiring. You're pretty young, or maybe you're younger than you look. We can't see if you have gray hair because you have no hair.
I would have gray hair, I believe, but I've been shaving it for a long time. Yeah, so I'm 57 years old. I believe I'll be your age this year.
Good.
So we're the same age, so.
Living my best life.
Born in '68, right? So we're definitely a Gen Xer there, and have like our parents didn't take care of us, right? They just kind of go play outside and come in.
That's why we can invent all this stuff. We were inventing like castles out of mud and sticks.
Correct. We
didn't have the Lego $5,000 with assembly instructions.
No, we had a very old Lego set that we kept reusing again and again and again.
There were a dozen Lego blocks that were reused 50,000 times.
So we built things, right? So now, like yourself, I worked in I worked in networking, I worked in software, embedded systems, and then eventually found my way to Red Hat, and was there for 5 years, and now I've since left Red Hat. I'm retired. I just decided to end it all, and my reasons for leaving are just various. So it's just I could write down a huge list, right? And boredom was part of that, right? And as soon as I retired, I was able to start developing. I started using AI. I had all these capabilities. It was fantastic.
All right. I am the guy enviously looking because we don't have the excellent healthcare you guys have up in Canada. So for me, I'm like 65 to retire. So I still got 7 years, right? So today, like a lot of big companies, once they get over 20,000 employees, they start to lose their like fire. And you go to like, you get a great idea for something. And Honestly, I actually had a great idea and just like pitched it to Chris Wright cold over email, and they didn't get back to me because it's like they're like, we're a big company. Use the chain of command, Ed. You know, if I had every SA who thought he had a bright idea bend my ear for 15 minutes, I'd never meet any of our big clients. So I don't blame them at all. But I'm kind of when you left, I was kind of like, I need to look at retirement, and there were some personal issues that came up that luckily everything's fine in the Haynes household, but I had to take kind of an emergency 2 weeks of leave to help with a family member that wasn't feeling good, and thankfully much better now. But a lot of sitting around in emergency rooms and stuff with my laptop, of course. And the way I handle stress is, and I don't drink anymore. So the way I handle stress is just to focus on a technical issue and like a freaking laser beam, right? Like, what is it, Austin Powers? Fish with freaking laser beams or whatever. And so that was where I started obsessing about the 100 rules, because I had noticed how unhappy I was with AI agents. I noticed how if you just applied these rules, I thought it was so cool that I think the secret for a lot of newbies reading my rules is like, you can tailor the thing to not eat up its context window, and you can train it for a specific persona, and or even do a few personas, like you consolidate a bit, have that little model handle the Python writing, the project management, have the medium model handle some other stuff, and then have Claude with a lot of instructions. The thing with Claude is he can remember my instructions 98% accurately. So when you need it done right, pay the piper, pay your $20 to Anthropic, and their trillion token model will get it done for you. But in the meantime, if you look at my window, it's like half of it is like, half of my Claude window is get status, cat, ls, pwd. You know, it's just all the stuff I'm too lazy to go to the terminal, right? It's like that does not need a trillion tokens, though I'm sure Anthropic will be happy to sell it to you.
No, just manage it. And that's been my view, right? Just managing your Git repo is just not something I feel comfortable. And also spending tokens on it. It's like using it just for the Linux command line, right? I don't know, to look at what's wrong with your system and everything. You're just burning through stuff, right? Or
yeah,
bash script. Unless you're very focused and you have a very clear view and you can architect, you can write it all down and you're sure.
Yeah, I've never had that. I've always been like the device driver hacker guy. And I was describing this somewhere in the rules or in some blog where we have two kinds of thinkers. I'm thinking you might be more the visual thinker. Like, are you good with object-oriented languages?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of C++ in my days.
Yeah, okay. I was terrible at C++. I was a C developer and I was like the device driver. And the way I think is kind of more like an LLM. It's very logical, text oriented. If I ask my wife for directions somewhere, I don't want take a right at the barn and then a left at the police station. Like I want exit numbers and letters. Take exit 21A. Right? So this is me, and this is why I was always horrible at GUIs. My first GUIs I made with Claude were just an abomination. It's just basically a list of radio buttons that you could like click to do the state of what you wanted. And that's why people like us need each other. Like you would be a much better, honestly, architect because you could make an object-oriented architecture. You would assign me to write the DHCP server and like read the protocol. Right?
I could, but never ask me for the GUI. I'm terrible at the GUI. And the application I wrote, I was so terrible at the GUI, even the AI wrote a bad GUI. And I was just good with it.
This is going to be one of the next episodes is how Claude taught me to be a better GUI designer, because it's one of the few things that I taught it how to code properly and project manage properly. It taught me how to use powerful algorithms correctly. It taught me how to organize my thoughts into a proper object-oriented architecture. And my workflow has been, I give it the random chicken thoughts from the C developer. It develops a coherent object-oriented architecture, and then the API derives from that. And once you have the API, the GUI And I force it to use tools like React and Vite, where the GUI just naturally follows your
And you are going exactly where I'm going, right? So I did a UI that was based on Flutter, and the reason I wanted to be able to compile for Mac, I wanted to be for the App Store, I wanted to compile for web as well. So the GUI is horrible.
He said Flutter. This sounds not safe for work, right? But it's Flutter.
Flutter is all good, right? Flutter is. I built my app.
Oh, your kids. Hey, look at this Flutter site I got.
But my API is fantastic, and my API is stateless, and this backend just scales very simply. So I can now take my API and just say, this is my API or APIs to my system. I could easily give it to a Claude, and he will build me a nice, beautiful React front end in very little time, because the API is all there. It's all documented.
Right.
And if I don't like the front end, I could just.
And if you follow my rule that all state exists once, basically the API document is the state of the architecture, and everything derives from that. It's not like I say add a widget and then the front end now has a widget that doesn't map to the API.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So we probably have 5 minutes left, because I guess my intent was like 10-minute podcast, because I know everyone's busy, but I think for an actual human being, this is about, if you have a free 30 minutes on your schedule, pop this on. So what would you like to see in the next episode? I sort of went off the rules and more into a free form. Maybe I could talk about my GUI problem. I think I would like, maybe I did this last episode. I talked about my blind spots. I had, in my rules were missing, I think 3 things that were crazy. One is, I think high availability you hit on. That's one that I forgot. Item potency. How did I forget item potency? It's like a key tenet of Ansible. Determinism and latency. Did I just forget that I worked? Have I been?
Determinism. You did. You went full Red Hat, but I think you had this focus on a single or multi-process containers, and you stayed away because you probably had a use case in mind when you developed them.
Yeah, it really pains me, and I love Red Hat. It's been a great company. I'm on the best team that I've ever known at Charter, and I should probably cut out what team I cover, but that team, and they're great, right? Yeah, but the thing that really pains me about Red Hat, that sort of makes me hang my head in shame, is when I go to install Satellite and it's requiring like 36 gigabytes of RAM, and I'm just like, what have I done? What have I done with my career? And Satellite, by the way, is a fantastic tool. I would recommend everybody use it. But if I took the embedded approach and like my rule says, make it as small as you can before you break it, to see where that limit is, and then you see how well it scales. Scalability is another thing I had a blind spot on. So if you have any good suggestions about high availability, scale, those other things, I'd like to
latency that you mentioned, right? I mean, you have to always keep these things.
Well, do a PR. You have time now. Do a pull request. All you have to do is look at the bottom 20 rules, which are absolute trash, and just Ed Haynes' little Easter eggs, and just suggest to replace one with one of yours, or replace, if you can replace a top, I dare you to replace a top 20 rule. Is there something I've missed? And it actually,
I have to review. I don't think you did. Okay.
AI gives you a head start with ideas, and it found a top 10. So I'm actually throwing you a bone here that's achievable, maybe. Well, thanks for taking time out of visiting the wine region of out of southern Montreal and
Ottawa, the Ottawa wine region. We have pretty bad wines here.
It's a great place. Begins with a B, and it's south of Montreal, and it had the chocolate, Le Musée du Chocolat. I'll find the name. It's a beautiful village. It's like a very European. Everyone speaks French there. It's a real deal. It's like the suburbs or the countryside of Montreal. So I really got to practice my embarrassing French.
Well,
Okay.
thank you for inviting me, Ed.
Yeah, thank you for showing up. And I bet this will be my highest. I predict this will be my highest because everyone will be curious, like what Guy has been up to. And I can just post on LinkedIn and say, you would not believe what Guy is up to. Oh, mind blown. Right. So, okay, thanks, and enjoy the week. And I'll talk to you again in another month, maybe.
Ciao.
All right, ciao.